What's going on, guys? And welcome to another live book club episode with me, Robert Nichols. It's Sunday night. Hope everyone had a great week. And today we are going to be covering chapters 4 through 6 in the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Just to give you guys a quick recap from last week, this book is about outliers. And these are folks who have achieved extraordinary things, but he really breaks it down as to why they achieve these things, how they achieve these things, and most importantly, how we can apply the same principles that he shares in his book to our lives in order to become better. And so welcome in here. I'm going to jump in here and just get started. My outline didn't print, so bear with me, guys. I'm reviewing my outline on the phone here, but we're going to kick it off with chapter 4 tonight. We definitely covered a lot last week, but this is the problem with geniuses part 2. And so he opens this section talking about a genius whose name is Chris Langan, who flunked out of college. He's the smartest man alive that we know of as far as his IQ. It's off the charts, yet flunked out of college, right? And did not achieve anywhere near the level of success he was predicted to achieve. And he really dissects why, and he gives you the tale of two geniuses. And so today's title of this book club is Why You Don't Need to Be a Genius, essentially. And Chris basically had all the intelligence in the world, but he struggled and did not have practical intelligence, which is what is required in order to be persuasive, to get what you want out of life and really bend things to your will. Whereas Robert Oppenheimer, who we all know, he created the atom bomb, he led the Manhattan Project. He actually tried to kill one of his college professors. He tried to kill him. He tried to poison him because he was just having some mental health issues. Yet he was able to stay in college. He got on academic probation, using his persuasive communication, and ended up thriving over time. So how does one guy who's a genius flunk out of college? And the reason he flunked out, let's get to that, is because he did not have the support of his professors and teachers when his car broke down, and they would not make an exception to move his classes around or anything. And so he couldn't get to school, flunked out, and he blamed the system. Oppenheimer obviously didn't blame the system. He believed that he could use the system to get what he wanted out of life. And so I really want to encourage you guys to really understand this principle. And the principles he shares are practical intelligence is number one versus general intelligence. So I saw a brilliant video the other day, right, that illustrates what practical intelligence is. I have 4 kids, and one of my daughters is very picky about what she wants to eat. So in this video, this guy was dealing with his sister who's very finicky, very indecisive. And so he used a brilliant strategy that I hope all of you guys apply to your life when it comes to dealing with someone who may be indecisive. And so he basically asked his sister where she thought they were going to go eat that day, because he hadn't selected a place, but he gave her all these cues. He was like, hey, sis, it's one of your favorite spots. It's a place you always think about, place you always talk about. Guess where we're going? And so she blurted out ultimately 5 Guys. He's like, that's exactly right. And it's really brilliant the way he structured that conversation with his sister, because he hadn't selected the place, right? He had said before, he kind of gave us the backstory that my sister's super indecisive. Anything I suggest, she's going to say no and think about something else. And so he gave her control by prompting her and asking her, hey, where do you want to go, sis? And, she definitely was able to, pick her place, and it just made it easy. And it's the same in our lives when we're dealing with situations that require us to be more persuasive. So I hope that really illustrates the lesson that we all can apply to our lives. Another thing he talks about is poor parents and rich parents. They did a few studies in the book, and I call it support the dream or kill the dream. So when I say support the dream, in this particular instance, we are talking about how wealthy parents, middle-class parents, they actually talk to their kids and they look to see how their kids react to different situations, what they like, what they don't like, what activities appeals to them, and really support those dreams and push them to excel at those things, right? They also will encourage their kids to advocate for themselves. Now, I grew up in the hood, and one of the things I saw coming up as a kid, even from my parents, was really a distrust of authority, number one. Number two, you don't tell them what you're thinking. And number 3, you just kind of go in, you don't want to ruffle feathers, right? You don't want to ruffle any feathers. You just want to go with the flow. And I will tell you guys, one of the things that Malcolm Gladwell talked about that really blew my mind was he said, that is how you stay poor. That's a poor habit, not speaking up, not being aggressive when it comes to getting what you want. So like, for example, when I was a kid and we would have parent teacher conferences, my parents, really didn't show up. And when they did, they weren't really engaged. They kind of listened to the teacher and just kind of let it be. Whereas he contrasts that with middle class and rich families. Parents are very active and involved in their schools. When the teacher says something's going on with the kid, they want a meeting immediately. They want to know how they can support the kid to be better. And the same goes in jobs. If you see something that is wrong, something that isn't in line with where you want to go, you have to speak up, guys. This is a skill set that doesn't get talked about a lot, but communication and communicating what you want, especially when you're seeing something that's wrong or something that doesn't align with your beliefs or something that isn't going to support you, you have to speak up, because it could literally mean the difference of opportunities that could change your life or you change your children's life. And these are things we have to teach our kids. Teach your children to advocate for themselves at an early age. One great illustration he gave was a wealthy Black family. And he said it's not across racial lines. He wanted to make that clear. He's like, a wealthy Black mother taught her son at an early age to make sure when they were going to the doctor's appointments to always have at least 1 or 2 questions to ask the doctors, because she wanted him to know how to advocate for himself, guys, because she knows the importance of that relative to his success. Feel free to share any stories or experiences in the chat. We got Damien on, we got Mario on. What's going on, guys? Appreciate you guys tapping in tonight. And, don't be shy raising your hand if you have questions or comments or thoughts on anything I'm sharing, because this is how we can definitely learn from each other and really have a back and forth. And if anyone wants to jump on with me next week, I'm happy to have multiple guests on here so we can definitely have more of a discussion around these principles and around these things. But as we move forward here, I definitely want to talk about just the importance of really knowing how our origins really shape and mold us. And we all have blind spots. That's something else that really came up to me. It's, as a kid, I thought that being docile and kind of being calm and not rocking the boat would serve me well. But as I've gotten older, I realized, guys, especially in business, there's sharks out here and they're coming for you. And you got to make sure that you understand how to protect yourself. You understand how to communicate in a way that's professional, but that doesn't allow folks to steamroll you and put you in a position where you're not really satisfied with what you're getting out of, whatever the experience is. When it comes to workers, I remember when I was coming up, I had a boss one time where when I went to corporate, I thought I was going to be getting up in there and helping them make decisions. I was excited. I had come from the stores at Stop and Shop into the corporate environment. And day one, my boy was like, hey, Rob, this is what we do. And he sent me a stack of papers like this, put it on the desk. And I basically was just doing glorified data entry. So I'm just putting stuff in. I literally fell asleep the first day on the job. And, it was a really monotonous role. But what ended up happening was I remember there was something that happened where I didn't forecast the numbers correctly, or I had made my own decision. And I went into my boss's office and he literally called me stupid to my face. And I was pissed. And I didn't confront him. I didn't say anything. I balled up my hand like I wanted to punch him. I didn't do anything. And I ended up quitting within a couple of weeks. My action was to take it outside of the office and just leave. But if I wanted to stay in that role and grow, like, you need to confront and say, no, you don't call me stupid. Like, someone said that to me now, they're just like, yo, what are you doing? Like, get out of here. So I really want to encourage you guys to understand that you have to stand up for what you believe in, especially in a corporate environment, regardless of, whatever you're afraid of. Trust me, communication will always serve you, especially in today's day and age. The next chapter we're going to jump into, chapter 5, and this is 3 lessons from Joe Flum. Joe Flum was a Jewish attorney who came up in a time, was born in the 1930s, where Jews could not be hired at the top law firms in New York at that time. They really didn't want nothing to do with them. One of the attorneys in the group that came up with Joe, it's actually ended up being one of his partners, was the highest out of his class at Harvard, ended up going to interview for the top law firm, made it all the way to the end, had a one-on-one meeting with the boss. Imagine this, guys. You're meeting with the big boss at this beautiful law firm. It's very prestigious. He brings you in the office one-on-one and tells you, man, you check every box except for the fact that you're Jewish. And I can't hire you because you're a Jew. It's pretty wild, right? Like, imagine someone told you that because you're Black, Latino, a woman, fill in whatever blank it is, that they couldn't hire you because of it. Nowadays they'd be in trouble, right? There'd be a class action lawsuits, the whole 9. But back in 1950, 1949, 45, whatever time it was, that didn't exist. And so it ended up, while it seemed like it was going to be a curse, it ended up being a blessing, because what ended up happening was, just kind of by chance, a lot of the Jews who were of similar backgrounds and had similar credentials and had graduated from top law schools ended up coming together to forming the top two law firms. Over the next 20 years, it became the top two law firms in New York City that happened by accident, primarily because of discrimination, which is nuts. And so he basically shares that anytime something comes up, any kind of adversity, guys, we have to start to look and realize there's two sides to every coin, right? Like, you may not get a job that you're going for, but it might force you into entrepreneurship. It may force you to get around people who are like-minded that will accelerate your growth, right? It will force you to get on calls like this to learn skills and learn frameworks and principles that can really support the direction of your life and the direction you're going into. And so don't let anyone stop you from achieving whatever you put on your heart to achieve. Look at every obstacle as a blessing. And I think this story really illustrates that well. You know, when these guys got discriminated against, they came together and formed the top law firm, not just any law firm, the top two law firms in New York through that process. The other thing he talks about is what it took, right? When you face that kind of adversity, what kind of mindset do you need to have to overcome that? And so the first principle he talks about, you gotta be hardworking. There's no excuses. I don't care what anyone says, right? You hear about all the shortcuts, work smarter, not harder. I'll be honest, hard work is the only way to get to the top, guys, right? Because everybody's at a certain level of smartness. That's not what's going to do it. So the first thing is hard work. The second thing is asserting yourself, speaking up for what you believe in, and understanding that life will give you what you expect. So if you expect great things, if you expect great outcomes, then you will be able to make that happen. You'll be able to manifest those things by communicating and taking action. You know, for example, I can tell you guys, when my boss called me stupid, right? I came home, talked to my wife. I told her, I said, you know, I'm done with this job. I was pissed. I don't know what to do. She's like, if you hate it that much, find another job. And I'm like, you know what? Great point. I took action immediately. And so what I ended up doing was, I went that night, I looked on Craigslist, and I saw an ad for a Dorchester real estate specialist. And who better than me? Grew up in Dorchester, loved real estate. I was a licensed agent moonlighting at the time. I had already bought my first property. And so I ended up applying for that job, interview for the job. And that literally changed the trajectory of my life. That situation right there, because that first job I got, I worked with a man who taught me commercial lending. He taught me real estate development. He taught me how to be a better judge of character, and gave me a lot of the skills that set the foundation for what I'm doing today. And so I'm forever grateful for him. But the key is, I had the courage to jump in and be assertive and say, you know what, I'm going to move in a different direction. And so hard work is number one, being assertive, number two, and then using your imagination is number three. And I think a lot of times, you know, the people around us, and he talks a lot about this, can stop us from getting the blessings that are meant for us. And so, you know, I've experienced that myself. And I think if anyone wants to share anything in the chat where you've experienced the same, please share it. And I'm happy to discuss that. But I can tell you guys, for over 10 years, I tried to help my friends from high school, a couple people who were with me, come up and really get into the game and learn real estate. And I thought they were going to give back, right? Pay it forward. We've all heard that term. And that's a big part of this as well. But they just didn't have that desire. They wanted to learn the game, get what they could get, and leave. And so it definitely doesn't make any sense at the end of the day. It looks like someone just chimed in here. Comments are getting deleted. I'm seriously a flipper. Someone, all right, cool. We can talk about that, man. We'll definitely check in. We'll tap in on you with the funding. I appreciate you chiming in on this. But, you know, using your imagination, right? You know, so I really desire to help people come up. And so, you know, with that said, you have to be careful who you tell your dreams to, who you tell your goals to, because they'll be the ones that tell you, don't do it. And so what ended up happening was, as I learned how to teach and learned real estate, I was sharing as I was going. And these guys who were around me, who were benefiting from it, they were telling me, don't put it on YouTube. Don't put it on social media. Stop giving them the game. You're sharing too much. And so at the end of the day, it's like, yo, what is going on here, right? Like, I have a vision to help folks grow, because I know it doesn't harm me, and it only creates opportunities for me to do more business and to do more commerce. And so I really, appreciate folks in my circle now who don't deter me, they support me, and they see the vision, and they have imagination as well as to how much greater we can be together. And so I really wanted to share that, as we got a couple people chiming in here. We got James Bond, Mr. Milton. You interviewed in 2022 for a position at a development company, and they never followed up. You asked the folks what happened, and they said nothing was wrong, but I didn't fit the profile they envisioned. I'll tell you, man, if you really wanted that job, Milton, he gives a great example in the book where kids try to test in to get into a gifted program, right? Poor parents say, oh, you didn't make it, Sally. It's all good. Middle class, rich parents and kids who ultimately become wealthy, their parents advocate and go back and say, all right, tell me why my kid didn't pass. Can they be reassessed? Is there another way? And 9 times out of 10, they find a way to get their kid into these programs. And so same thing goes for you, Milton. Like maybe that role wasn't for you, but you could push and say, well, please give me feedback so that I can be better and come back when I am ready, and people in positions of authority respect that because not everybody does that. And so if you advocate for yourself in that manner, you have a much higher probability to get those roles. We got Americans here. He said wrote a few books and people have burned them on video. You know what? At the end of the day, it's an American zombie. I'll tell you, man, anytime you start getting into the game, you start becoming successful, you're going to have haters guaranteed. And so at the end of the day, it's all good. The hate is a part of the process, because you can't please everyone. You really can't, and you shouldn't try to. I think that's really important. M. Florian says, create an environment that helps you grow to the best vision of yourself. Correct. And we have to be intentional about that as well, because nobody ever became successful alone. And that's the last point he makes in that chapter. He's like, nobody who got to the top did it by themselves. The next chapter is chapter 6. And this is a pretty wild chapter, guys. I'll tell you, he's talking about Harlan, Kentucky. That's the name of the title. And the subtitle is Die Like a Man, Like Your Brother Did. So we're going to take it back to 1819. And it's crazy. So Milton was saying there's more details, but ultimately it came down to racism. Crazy, bro. Thank you for sharing that. And, in those situations, right, I think it's important when we know that's the case, is not a bad idea to potentially talk to an attorney. I'm telling you, like, it shows the company they're not going to get away with it, not just with you, but with anyone in the future. And if you have kids, you got family, you got folks who look up to you, they're definitely going to respect and see, wow, I didn't know that I could affect change by taking action against a firm or against folks, and really trying to push to make sure that what's right is right and what's wrong is called out. So that's what I say, man. I think that's really important, a really important lesson here for that particular situation. But let's talk about Harlan, Kentucky, right? So subtitle of this chapter 6, is Die Like a Man, Like Your Brother Did, which is pretty graphic, but it's crazy once you hear the story. So in 1819, you had a lot of folks coming into America from Scotland, from England, from Ireland, on the hillsides, right? So this is more Scottish, Irish folks coming in here. And the culture over there was extremely hard. And at the end of the day, like, these folks brought that hard energy with them. They were used to dealing with disputes, not in the legal system, right? Face to face, man to man. And it's what he called an honor culture, a culture of honor. And in a culture of honor, if someone questions your manhood, you have a right to kill them straight up. Like, that's how they ain't fighting it out, duking it out. They're shooting it out. Gunfights every day, all day. And so, he really breaks this down really from the lens of, why is this happening? Why are all these violent crimes happening in Kentucky? And it wasn't just Harlan. It was all the neighboring remote areas, to the point where there was a court hearing one day. They had the court hearing, and right outside the courthouse, they had like a 200-man gunfight. Like, crazy stories like that were happening on a regular basis. And Malcolm was really breaking down. The reason this happens is we got to go back historically. And the folks, even though they were in America, this was 100 years after a lot of them had come over, the culture doesn't die. The culture doesn't die. And he really proved that point. They did a study at a University of Michigan, where they had kids from the South, half the kids was from the South, half the kids was from the Northeast. And they basically put them in stressful situations. And then they had some 6'5" dude, like 200 pounds, basically call them assholes, literally use that word. He's like, they walking through the hall and he would like randomly kind of brush up on shoulder and call them assholes. And it was crazy when they ran the data for this, but all the kids in the Northeast, for the most part, all were like looking to de-escalate the situation. And most of the kids from the South, not all of them, they're ready to fight. They're ready to brawl. They're ready to respond with violence. And so it's crazy sometimes, but I look at it like there are curses sometimes, generational curses. And it's not something that's necessarily in the blood, but they talk about nature versus nurture. And a lot of people, how we're nurtured, there's inherent things in us that we may not realize don't serve us. And so he really strives to teach us to be aware of the habits in our lives and the characteristics and personality traits that serve us to become successful and the things that do not. And I'll tell you guys, for me, personal story, right? My grandfather was a pastor. He was an evangelist. He had a heart of gold. He had a heart big enough to house as many people as he could in the church, helping people, gave money to the poor, the whole nine. He gave real estate away. And, I think obviously he was a great man, but I also realized as he got older, my dad told me this, he did have some regrets relative to how he interacted with people, as far as allowing people to take advantage of him, take advantage of some of my uncles, with just having them do too much. And, it's one thing to be kind and giving, and it's another thing to be a doormat and getting taken advantage of. And so the way that I was raised, it definitely put me in a position where I'd have a higher probability to be one of those people who got taken advantage of, just because, I didn't know how to say no when I was younger. I would say yes to everything. And so what I've had to learn to do is really focus on where I'm going. And if whatever request comes in, someone asks me to speak, somebody asks me to go to an event, somebody asks me to make a donation, if it doesn't align with my values, if it doesn't align with my principles, and if it doesn't align with where I'm going, right, where my life is headed, I quickly say no nonsense, because I've been called to serve. And so the more I do that's out of line with where I want to go, the less people that I can serve. And so that's a bad habit that didn't serve me. And so I really challenge everyone on the call tonight to really look at your life and just make sure your daily habits are serving you, your mindset is serving you, and the environment you've created for yourself is serving you. Because a big part of what we learned from the lessons in this book is we are all called to bend our lives to our will. It's not the opposite. It's not about taking what you can get. It's literally about bending the rules to serve you through advocacy, through hard work, and through imagination, and really recognize it out there in the world based on the talents and gifts you have, or the skills that you are willing to work for and develop. So I hope this helps you guys on that front. As he was kind of breaking down what was going on in Harlan, Kentucky, they literally came back to two ways that all of this could be stopped. And it was one, he's basically saying that if you avoid arguments, number one, you're not going to get killed. Number two, if you can avoid adultery, you're not going to be killed, because 99% of the fights were arguments over cattle, land, whatever, you name it, like people just calling each other names, all kind of foolishness. You got to find a way to de-escalate. And then the second thing was women, right? Adultery. A lot of the men would fight over the women. And so if you could definitely not do that, you'd be good to go during this time. And that was pretty much it. It's the culture of honor is what they call it. Anyone else want to chime in here, please feel free to leave your comments. Anything we discussed tonight. The book is a pretty quick read. So I did 3 chapters tonight. Next week, we'll finish it off and see where we land on it. But, so far it's been good. I mean, I think my big takeaway from what is really 3 main takeaways. Number one, be aware of the opportunities of your day. And so for me, the opportunity that I see the biggest potential in is AI. I think we all can agree with that. If you guys agree, put a thumbs up in the chat. AI is where it's at. Whether you're in real estate, whether you're in stocks, whether you're in business, I can give you one example, right? With AI and stocks. I'm not a stock investor or broker. I do invest in stocks, but I had asked it the other day to give me a stock strategy that will allow me to profit and conservatively grow with the market. And so it told me, if you dollar cost average in, meaning for all the money I make, if I take 10% of that money and put it into the stock market in these 4 ETFs, it will consistently grow and it will give me this type of a return potentially with the market But it gave you kind of a breakout as to where you should expect to be within 10 years if you keep putting this amount in, and based on the projected growth. So AI to me is amazing. It also can help you write a business plan. It can help you code. It can help say. I mean, it has all that we can imagine. And some question gives you a concise answer that actually power you, believe it or not, to make more profits. I know, hey, Rudy, appreciate you jumping in tonight. Rudy's on the call. I know Rudy is doing some stuff in the vending machine world, right? You can literally try to give you a business plan to scale your vending machine business. I know Jose's in construction. You can give it a plan that help you scale your construction business. So opportunities, guys, they come around every so often. I know last week we talked about those errors. And so I really want to make sure all of you guys are leveraging it and taking advantage of it. The second piece of the book is really curses, generational curses, and things that are inherently in us that we have to be aware of. Because again, sometimes we have blind spots. This is where you want to ask your friends, your family, folks you trust, and even maybe speak to a psychologist or a professional. But you want to work through whatever issues may be holding you back. And really the magic question to ask yourself is, what is holding me back from having the life I want? Because we're all capable of getting there. But most of the times, 99% of the time, it's internal. It's nothing external. And so we got to do that deep dive inside of ourselves to realize, what does it take? I know for me coming up, my parents got divorced when I was very early, and there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of frustration. And so one of the ways I worked through, I talked to my grandfather a lot. He was a pastor, as I mentioned, who helped me really work through forgiveness. But two things I realized about that. One was that if my parents could have done better, they would have done better, right? They're humans. They make mistakes. And they were just living the best they can, doing the best they can. So that was the first thing. The second thing was me not forgiving my mother or them or whatever the case was harming me more than it was harming them. And someone said it one time. They said, when you hold on to a grudge, it's like you're drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. And that was one of the realest things I ever heard. So I don't want to poison myself, right? They're living their lives. They're having a great time. They're doing whatever, these people who have wronged us. But ultimately, if we don't forgive them, we are poisoning our lives. We're poisoning our spirits. And it's really on us to make sure that we don't do that to ourselves. I love myself too much to treat myself that way. And I'm sure you guys do as well. So that's the second thing I've learned from the book. And then the last thing we talked about it tonight is self-advocacy and teaching your children how to advocate in this tough world that we live in, guys. They say only the strong will survive, and that's the truth, right? You can be nice, you can be calm, you can be cool, you can be a great person, but don't stand for injustice. Don't stand for being wronged. Don't let people use you as a doormat. You got to speak your mind. I had a recent interaction with an attorney, right? He is known for being a bully. And I know he's known for being a bully. So he tried to bully one of my team members. I said, let me handle this. So he starts spewing all these lies. We're involved in a deal, and it's a lot of chaos going on. Families like fighting with each other. And so he accused us, my office, of doing something we didn't do. And I said, dude, got on the email, stop the lying, bro. Like, we're not taking your crap. And next time, check your facts before you send some wild, crazy email like this. And on top of that, of course, I picked up the phone. I called, like, yo, what are you doing? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, you guys are doing. I said, stop right there. I said, you just talking some nonsense. Check your email, bro. He's like, oh, man. And, bullies, to me, in my experience, you just got to punch them in the face once. And after that, that's it. You're good. And so in this particular instance, he hasn't showed out or acted out anymore. He's been very, very respectful. He's been very courteous. He calls me Mr. Nichols now. Now he's turned from a bully to a butt kisser. You know what I mean? So you have to stand up for yourself. You have to advocate for yourself. And it's pretty wild to kind of see the 360 that happened, or the 180 that happened, 180-degree turnaround that happened with this guy who was trying to bully me around and didn't realize, like, I seem nice and I'm nice, but you start poking the bear, you're going to get something that you're not expecting. And I think it's important for all of us to learn the lesson. So those are really the three main principles that he covers in this. We got Clifford on here, YouTube. He makes AI to do videos for YouTube. Once again, his numbers above. You need funding. There's no number on here, sir. This is not for, again, this is not for you to solicit business. So that comment's getting deleted. All righty. We're getting rid of that right now. How you do this? There we go. So yeah, he's out of the chat. That one's gone. appreciate the comments, but this is not for soliciting business. Again, this is how you got to deal with folks. So if there's nothing else, I hope you guys all have a great night. We had a great meetup this past weekend. Thank you for everyone who came out. Shout out to Jose, Damien, Mario. We had a great time yesterday. It was awesome. The other Mario was there as well. We got to chop it up. So we'll hop on a call this week. And I know you guys got some development deals we need to discuss. And if anyone needs support on the development front, on the funding front, on the real estate investment front, my team and I do consulting. I do have a coaching business. And then Mauricio, he's not on tonight, but we also run a group called Investors Edge to help people learn AI, learn the stock market, learn real estate, learn financing, to double their income, to leave your 9-to-5, and to, really make the most out of your life by acquiring skills that are relevant to today, that align with who you are. We're not asking you to be anything other than who you are. So if you guys are looking to learn the game and learn whatever is crypto, stocks, real estate, finance, we have mindset coaches, fitness coaches. We do a 1-hour call every week. Every call is recorded. And so we got a university where you could jump in and literally start learning how to trade today. And that's only for $97 a month. It's really geared towards creating a community of like-minded people who get together. And we're going to be doing a summit as well with a lot of our speakers coming on in September. So I'm super excited to introduce you guys to some heavy hitters that are in my network that I'm giving you guys access to, that love to share and love to see others win out here. So thanks everyone for jumping on tonight. It's always a pleasure. And as I said, hit me up, DM me if you guys want to jump into the book club next week so we can have a more interactive discussion as we wrap up Outliers. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time.